On our wedding day, my fiancé, Carter, got down on one knee and promised me forever. I smiled, blushing and ready to say yes, when his pick-me, childhood bestie ruined the moment. Wow, Carter, Aria has such an amazing body. You're one lucky guy. Chloe grabbed my hands eagerly. Aria, you have to tell me your measurements. I'm so jealous. Unlike me, I'm completely flat. Though it sounded like a compliment, it was incredibly inappropriate for our wedding. But I didn't want to make a scene, so I laughed it off with some humor. My measurements are classified information, Chloe. Only my husband gets access to that. I thought she'd drop it, but Chloe pouted and turned to Carter. Carter, Aria won't tell me. What's the big secret? Just tell me. Maybe I'll go get breast implants and liposuction next week to blow everyone's minds. The atmosphere in the room shifted. Everyone was looking at me, and I finally realized the discomfort I felt came from her sheer hostility. I looked at Carter, expecting him to shut it down. Instead, he ignored my warning look and spoke with a smug, boasting grin. She's a 36-23-36. A few guys in the crowd whistled. My face went numb. I stood there for a few seconds, then yanked off my diamond ring and threw it right at his face. Do you want me to share your underwear size with everyone too? Didn't you want to get male enhancement surgery? Are you even hitting 4 inches? The moment Chloe finished her little speech about blowing everyone's minds, every eye in the room landed on me. The seeds of doubt had been planted. After today, rumors about me having plastic surgery or breast implants would spread like wildfire. I'd never be able to wash that dirt off. Before I agreed to Carter's proposal, I knew he had a tight-knit circle of friends. Carter was a billionaire heir, so his friends were naturally wealthy and spoiled. Chloe was the only girl in the group, basically treated like a princess by all of them. I'm not a jealous person, and I'm pretty open-minded about social boundaries. I had only met her a few times before, and she had always seemed like a loud, bubbly, tomboyish girl. Aria, you don't mind, right? There was a hidden malice in Chloe's voice. Today, she was wearing a white lace dress. It looked suspiciously like a wedding gown. I turned my glaring eyes to Carter, but when he saw my anger, he just gave Chloe a doting smile. Carter threw his arm around her shoulders, his elbow brushing against her chest. He laughed, arrogant and teasing. She's definitely bigger than your A-cups. You're so annoying. Go away. She stomped her foot, acting cute and offended. My wife is very open-minded, Carter said, turning his gaze back to me. She'll give me some face. Hearing this, the warmth in my chest instantly turned to ice. I began to tremble. Then I'll make an appointment next week, Carter. You still haven't told me her measurements. Then, his bragging voice echoed in my ears. She's a 36-23-36. Carter pinched Chloe's cheek. What do you think? Jealous? There was no admiration in Chloe's eyes, only a flash of pure envy. I remember Aria's measurements weren't like that before. I saw online that this kind of body is usually built in a surgeon's office. She gasped and covered her mouth, pretending she had made a slip of the tongue, but she had successfully planted the rumor. Maybe I remembered wrong. I've met all of Carter's ex-girlfriends, but you're the only one he's actually marrying, Aria. My face grew darker with every word she spoke. But you're so lucky, Aria. Your natural genetics are great. She reached out, trying to poke my chest. I slapped her hand away. My palms were sweaty, making it easy to slide the ring off. The moment the diamond slid past my knuckle, my love for him died. With a sharp clack, Carter felt a warm, hard object strike his face. He looked down and saw my engagement ring. Carter froze. Being humiliated like this in front of everyone made his ego snap. He roared at me. Aria, what the hell is wrong with you? Are you crazy? I spoke coldly. Since you've shared the bride's measurements, I'm sure everyone is curious about the groom's size too. Do you want me to share your underwear size with everyone too? Carter, didn't you want to get male enhancement surgery? Are you even hitting 4 inches? The room fell dead silent. Everyone's eyes instantly shot down to Carter's pants. Carter noticed, but he was powerless to refute my words. The groom looks so tall and big. Is he really that small? Yikes. I guess nobody's perfect. There's always a catch. The whispers immediately reached Carter's ears. Actually, with a tiny tool like yours, it really is best to keep it hidden, I said, holding up my thumb and index finger to show a tiny gap. Carter's face flushed completely black. Aria, what lies are you spreading? We're getting married today. Why are you throwing a tantrum now? His face was red from his ears to his neck. Don't you know what day it is? How can you talk about such private things in public? Oh, so he knew what day it was. He knew what private meant. We haven't signed the marriage certificate yet anyway. This wedding is off. Carter looked at me in disbelief. His friends immediately started trying to fix things for him. Aria, Chloe really didn't mean it. She's just brainless sometimes. Don't be mad at her. Everyone was making excuses for Chloe. Yeah, we've been friends for years. We're just very open with each other. I felt nothing but cold amusement. Then why don't you share your wife's measurements with us right now? I asked the guy who spoke. The guy didn't hesitate. He immediately rattled off 3 numbers. Another friend leaned in and laughed. Wow, did your wife's tits get bigger again? It was obvious they constantly rated and judged their wives and girlfriends behind closed doors. They were trash. Even if I had a perfect body, being used as a trophy to brag about made me sick. Carter had zero respect for me. Marrying a man like this would make the rest of my life a living hell. Pathetic, I muttered. Seeing how calm I was, Chloe's eyes welled with tears. Aria, don't make things hard for everyone else. If I had a body like yours, I'd gladly share it. You're being so petty. Today is your wedding, but you're humiliating Carter. If you want to show off, that's your business. But you're right about one thing. I am petty. I don't tolerate trash. Seeing her looking so pitiful, my fiancé frowned, stepped forward, and pulled Chloe behind him. We were in a direct standoff now. Carter agreed with Chloe. He thought I was just being dramatic. Chloe was just complimenting your body. What's wrong with admitting it? Unless you really did get plastic surgery, like she said. Can you stop acting up? Today is our wedding. Do you want to make this ugly? No, it was already ugly. Seeing the utter disappointment in my eyes, Carter looked a bit guilty. Fine. I love you, and it has nothing to do with your body. He picked up the dusty ring from the floor and tried to slide it back onto my ring finger. I looked down and slapped his hand away. I said, the wedding is off. This time, the ring rolled deep under the bed, completely out of sight. Seeing she had gotten what she wanted, Chloe quickly winked at another friend. The guy immediately added fuel to the fire. Carter, I can't watch this anymore. If she's like this on the wedding day, imagine what she'll be like after marriage. Ise, let her go. Who is she trying to threaten? We all know who's going to embarrass themselves today. Carter's toxic masculinity flared up. Aria, I don't have time for your little tantrums. The invitations are out. My family is here. And you're telling me you're calling it off. He ran his tongue over his teeth and let out an arrogant smirk. Fine. Go ahead and play the solo bride. Let's see who loses more face. Chloe's eyes lit up, but she still kept up her fragile act. I'm sorry, Aria. I didn't mean to ask. I just thought your body was so perfect. Please don't call off the wedding because of me. She reached out to grab my hand, pretending to comfort me, but her nails dug hard into my skin. I winced in pain and pushed her away. Chloe instantly collapsed to the floor like she had no bones, her eyes red and tearful. Carter was quick. He caught her in his arms. She clung to his shoulder, sobbing. The eyes I once loved to look at were now filled with cold disappointment. Aria, it was just a few numbers. Why do you have to be so relentless? Was it really just about the numbers? Seeing my silence, Chloe whimpered. Aria, I know you hate how close I am to Carter, and that's why you're throwing a fit today. But Carter has the right to have friends after marriage. Controlling him like this already. You're being way too much. Carter, thinking of his precious freedom, snapped. Chloe, don't beg her. She's acting like a crazy, jealous shrew. To think I actually thought she was sweet and gentle. The word shrew felt like a dagger to my heart. We had been dating for 1.5 years. Whenever I got slightly jealous before, he would pinch my nose and call me his cute little jealous baby. Now, he was throwing such vile words at me. Chloe's heavy tears hit the floor. Carter almost cut ties with his parents just to marry you. You know how much he loves you. In this relationship, Carter was the one who pursued me. For 1 year, he had laid his heart at my feet. He used to be a wild, rebellious playboy whom nobody could tame, yet he was willing to lower himself to cry and laugh with me. He was the arrogant, bad boy billionaire, and I was the insecure, poor scholarship girl. The bad boy turning good for his true love. It was the perfect romance trope, ending at the altar. But now, I looked at his arm tightly wrapped around Chloe's waist. The love I had cherished so deeply was nothing but a joke. They turned to leave. But just as they reached the door, Carter walked back to me. Aria, you're calling it off, right? Don't forget, everything on you is paid for with my money. Your tuition, this wedding, your mother's medical bills, and even her funeral. I paid for all of it. So, What right do you have to say no to me? He grabbed my wrist. And this wedding dress you're wearing, it was paid for with my money. Take it off. With those words, he ripped away the last shred of my dignity. He knew exactly where I came from. He knew how poor and desperate I had been. Yet, he chose to expose my deepest wounds to everyone, using them as a weapon to hurt me. I guess free things are always the most expensive. Under the mocking stares of the crowd, I reached back and pulled the zipper of the wedding dress down. Carter's face went pale, and he pinned me to the bed.
Aria.
I just wanted you to bow your head. Why do you have to be so stubborn? I slapped his hands away and stepped completely out of the wedding dress. Standing by the bed in my white silk slip, my voice trembled with a fragile but solid strength. Here's your dress. As for the rest, I'll pay you back. Every single penny. Carter froze for a second, looking absolutely livid. Since you want a clean break, I'll give it to you. You've been with me for so long. Who else would want you besides me? Don't regret this. He stormed out with his friends. Chloe slowed her pace, lingering behind.
See?
You two were never a match anyway. A girl of your class could never hold him down. I suggest you stay far away from him after today. As she walked away smugly, my phone buzzed with a text message. Since he won't marry you, marry me instead. I can give you far more than he ever could. I stared at the screen for a long time before typing my reply. Okay, I'll marry you. I hit send, the screen blurring slightly as a cold draft swept through the empty bridal suite. I was standing in nothing but a white silk slip, my bare feet sinking into the plush carpet, yet my blood was boiling. I had no idea who the sender was. The number was blocked, encrypted. But at that exact moment, I didn't care if it was the devil himself. Anything was better than bowing my head to Carter and his pack of sycophants.
Buzz.
Come down to the underground parking garage. Section C. A black Maybach. I grabbed my everyday clothes, a simple pair of jeans and a beige sweater I had worn to the venue this morning, and dressed mechanically. I didn't bother taking the elevator. I took the fire stairs, my sneakers slapping quietly against the concrete. With every step downward, the crushing weight of the last year and a half began to lift. Carter had thought his money was a leash. He thought reminding me of my mother's funeral would break my spine. Instead, it had shattered the illusion. When I pushed open the heavy metal door to Section C, the air smelled of exhaust and damp concrete. Sitting under the flickering fluorescent lights was a sleek, jet-black Maybach, its engine purring like a sleeping panther. As I approached, the rear door swung open. I hesitated for a fraction of a second before stepping inside. The interior was a world away from the cold garage, warm, smelling of rich leather, cedar, and expensive cologne. I thought you might need a minute to cry, a deep, smooth voice said from the shadows of the opposite seat. I turned my head, my breath hitched. Sitting there, looking immaculate in a charcoal bespoke suit, was Julian Cross. Anyone in Carter's circle, anyone in the city, really knew that name. Julian was the ruthless architect behind the Cross conglomerate, a man who had built an empire from the ground up, entirely overshadowing the generational wealth of spoiled heirs like Carter. He was older by about 6 years, notoriously private and dangerously brilliant. I had met him exactly twice. Once at a charity gala where Carter had gotten drunk and embarrassed himself, and once when Julian had briefly stepped in to stop one of Carter's friends from harassing a waitress. Mr. Cross, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I'm not crying. I'm just calculating my debts. A slow, appreciative smile touched his lips. He reached over to the built-in console, poured a glass of amber liquid, and handed it to me.
Drink.
It'll stop your hands from shaking. I took it, downed it in one burning gulp, and set the crystal glass down. Why did you text me? Julian didn't mince words. He leaned forward, the ambient light catching the sharp, predatory angles of his jaw. Because I have a proposition. And because I despise watching a diamond be treated like cheap glass by a boy who doesn't know its worth. You said marry me, I reminded him, my defensive walls snapping into place. If you think I'm jumping from one gilded cage to another just to spite Carter, you're mistaken. I'm going to pay him back every cent. I don't need a sugar daddy to do it. Julian's eyes darkened with a mixture of amusement and respect. Aria, I don't want a pet. I want a partner. My board of directors has been breathing down my neck about my bachelor status. They want stability, a public image of a family man before we launch our European IPO next quarter. I needed a wife. Someone intelligent, poised, who won't embarrass me, and who cannot be bought by my rivals. And you thought the runaway bride in the silk slip was the perfect candidate? I thought the woman who threw a diamond ring at a billionaire's face and walked out with her dignity intact was the only candidate, Julian corrected smoothly. He pulled a manila folder from the seat beside him. A 2-year contract. In exchange for playing the role of my wife, I will clear your debt to Carter immediately. Furthermore, I will fund any business venture or education you wish to pursue. When the 2 years are up, you leave with $5 million and your absolute freedom. He handed me a pen. Or, you can walk out of this car, figure out how to pay back a petty man who will spend every waking hour trying to ruin your life to soothe his ego. Your choice. I looked at the contract. It was meticulously drafted. No hidden clauses, no demands for physical intimacy. It was a business transaction, cold and clean, the exact opposite of the messy, toxic manipulation Carter called love. I uncapped the pen and signed my name. Julian's smile widened just a fraction. He took the folder back and tapped the partition. Drive, Marcus. Where are we going? I asked as the car glided out of the garage. To the bank, Julian said, checking his watch. And then, my dear, we're going back upstairs. I stared at him. Upstairs? To the reception? Julian's gaze met mine, cold and utterly merciless. Carter expects you to run away and hide in shame. He's likely upstairs right now, playing the victim, letting that little friend of his comfort him in front of his guests. We are not going to let him control the narrative. The grand ballroom of the St. Regis was buzzing with whispered gossip when the heavy double doors swung open. Just as Julian predicted, the party hadn't stopped. Carter had decided to salvage his ego by turning the wedding reception into a bizarre, spiteful celebration of his freedom. The string quartet was playing, champagne was flowing, and right in the center of the room stood Carter. Next to him, clinging to his arm like a barnacle, was Chloe. She had somehow managed to pin a white veil into her hair. It was grotesque. When the doors opened, the chatter died instantly. I walked in. I wasn't wearing a wedding dress anymore. I was wearing a stunning, tailored white power suit that Julian had his assistant procure from a nearby boutique within an hour. I looked sharp, lethal, and completely unfazed. But it wasn't just my outfit that made the room freeze. It was the man walking beside me, his hand resting respectfully but firmly on the small of my back. Carter's smug smile vanished. The glass in his hand tilted, spilling champagne onto Chloe's white lace dress. Aria? Carter sneered, though his voice cracked slightly when his eyes shifted to Julian. What the hell are you doing? And, Mr. Cross? Why are you with my ex? Julian didn't answer him. He simply led me through the parting sea of guests until we stood directly in front of Carter and Chloe. I'm here to settle my accounts, I said loudly, ensuring the entire room could hear. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a certified cashier's check. I didn't hand it to him. I dropped it on the floor at his feet. $342,000, I stated, my voice echoing in the silent ballroom. That covers my mother's medical bills, her funeral, my tuition, the clothes you bought me, and the deposit for this pathetic circus. We are entirely even. Carter stared at the check, his face turning an ugly shade of purple. Where did you get this kind of money? You're a broke nobody. His eyes darted to Julian, and a nasty, venomous sneer twisted his lips. Oh, I see. You couldn't handle me, so you spread your legs for a bigger wallet within an hour? You really are a whore, Aria. Before the last word fully left his mouth, Julian moved. It wasn't a punch. It was worse. Julian stepped into Carter's personal space, radiating an aura of such intense, terrifying authority that Carter instinctively stumbled backward, nearly tripping over Chloe. Speak to my fiancé with that tone again, Carter, Julian said, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper that somehow carried across the room, and I will personally ensure your father's company is liquidated by Friday. I will buy your family's estate, pave over it, and turn it into a parking lot. Do we understand each other? The word fiancé caused a collective gasp to ripple through the crowd. Chloe stepped forward, her face pale, desperately trying to maintain her innocent facade. Fiancé? But Mr. Cross, Aria was just begging Carter to marry her this morning. She's manipulative. She's just using you to make him jealous. Julian didn't even look at her. He kept his eyes locked on Carter. A yapping dog, Carter. You always did have terrible taste in company. He finally looked at Chloe, and the absolute disdain in his eyes made her shrink back. For the record, miss, whatever your name is, my fiancé did not need plastic surgery to secure a man's attention. She secured mine by having a spine, something you clearly lack. I looked at Carter. The man I thought I loved looked small, pathetic, and utterly terrified. Goodbye, Carter, I said softly. Enjoy your echo chamber. I turned on my heel and walked out, Julian right beside me. We didn't look back, not even when we heard the sound of Carter screaming at a waiter to get out of his way. The next 6 months were a whirlwind that completely rewrote the reality of my life. True to his word, Julian treated me not as a subordinate, but as an equal. We were married in a quiet, incredibly elegant ceremony in Lake Como, Italy, attended only by his closest friends and core board members. There were no crude jokes, no frat boy whispers, no pick-me girls in white dresses. When we returned to the city, I didn't sit around spending his money. I used the capital he provided as a loan to launch a boutique PR and crisis management firm. I had spent a year navigating the fragile, toxic egos of Carter's elite circle. I knew exactly how the wealthy operated, how they hid their scandals, and how they wanted to be perceived. My firm exploded in popularity. I was working 14-hour days, exhausted but deeply, profoundly fulfilled. And Julian was a revelation. We lived in the same massive penthouse, initially in separate bedrooms. But our late-night encounters in the kitchen, sharing takeout over complex merger documents, him asking for my perspective on his public statements, me asking for his advice on aggressive client negotiations, slowly blurred the lines of our contract. He never pushed. He never demanded. He simply provided a safe, unshakable foundation for me to grow. One rainy Tuesday evening, I was sitting on the living room rug, surrounded by files, frustrated over a smear campaign targeting one of my clients. Julian came home, took off his suit jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and sat down on the floor next to me. "You're overthinking it," he murmured, his shoulder brushing mine. "They're attacking her past," I sighed, rubbing my temples. "Because she grew up poor, they're painting her as a gold digger. It's triggering, honestly." Julian went still. He reached out, his large, warm hand gently tilting my chin up, so I was forced to look at him. His dark eyes were softer than I had ever seen them.
Aria.
"Look at what you've built in 6 months," he said quietly. "You are formidable. Anyone who looks at your past and sees weakness is a fool who is about to be crushed." He leaned in, slowly, giving me every opportunity to pull away. I didn't. When his lips met mine, it wasn't the frantic, possessive, desperate kissing I was used to with Carter. It was deep, deliberate, and fiercely devoted. It was the kiss of a man who didn't want to own me, but who wanted to stand beside me. That night, the contract in the safe became obsolete. Meanwhile, Carter's life was spectacularly imploding. Without me there to act as his emotional punching bag and the mediator for his awful group of friends, Carter's true colors alienated everyone. He had officially started dating Chloe, but a relationship built on malice and envy was doomed to rot. According to society gossip, Chloe had gotten the breast implants she joked about at my wedding, along with a nose job and lip fillers, desperately trying to keep Carter's wandering eye in check. But Carter was a man who only wanted what he couldn't have. When he saw me thriving, appearing on the cover of business magazines, standing poised and radiant on Julian's arm at global summits, it drove him insane. The climax of his pathetic spiral happened exactly 1 year after our disastrous non-wedding. It was the annual Metropolitan Commerce Gala. Julian and I were the guests of honor, representing the newly minted Aria Foundation. I wore a backless emerald silk gown that fit like a second skin, my hair swept up, wearing the tasteful, flawless diamond Julian had chosen for me. We were laughing with the mayor when I heard a loud, slurred voice cut through the elegant chatter. Well, if it isn't the power couple." I turned to see Carter. He looked awful. His tuxedo was slightly rumpled, his eyes were bloodshot, and he had lost that arrogant, boyish charm that used to mask his cruelty. Chloe was trailing behind him, looking anxious and exhausted, her face tight and heavily contoured. "Carter," I said evenly. "Have a good evening." I turned to walk away, but he stepped into my path, a glass of whiskey sloshing in his hand. "You think you're so much better than me now, don't you, Aria?" he sneered, though there was a desperate edge to his voice. "Playing the big boss. We all know Cross bought your little company for you. You're still just a charity case." Julian stepped forward, but I put a hand on his chest, stopping him. I didn't need Julian to fight this battle for me. I looked at Carter, scanning him from head to toe. I didn't feel anger anymore. I just felt a profound, overwhelming pity. "Carter," I said, my voice calm and carrying perfectly across the suddenly quiet room. "Julian didn't buy my company. He invested in it. And I paid him back his initial investment, with interest 3 months ago. The only charity case I see here is you, living off your father's trust fund, drinking his liquor and wearing clothes you didn't earn." Carter's face flushed dark red. "You bitch." "And Chloe," I said, shifting my gaze to the girl who had ruined my wedding day. She flinched as I addressed her. You wanted him so badly. You tore me down to get him. Tell me, was the prize worth it? Chloe's eyes welled with tears, real ones this time. She looked at Carter, who was glaring at her, embarrassed by her presence. She looked down at her shoes and said nothing. That's what I thought, I murmured. You think you won? Carter hissed, stepping closer. He'll get bored of you, Aria. Men like him always do. You're just a novelty. Julian finally spoke. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. Actually, Carter, I find myself more fascinated by my wife every single day. Julian reached into his breast pocket and casually pulled out a folded piece of heavy stock paper. But speaking of getting bored, I grew bored of your father's attempts to compete with me in the tech sector. Julian handed the paper to Carter. Carter unfolded it, his bloodshot eyes scanning the text. The color completely drained from his face, leaving him looking sickly and hollow. What is this? Carter stammered. That is a hostile takeover, Julian said pleasantly. As of 4 p.m. today, Cross Conglomerate holds a 51% controlling stake in your family's firm. Your father has been ousted from the board, and your trust fund, which was tied to company stock, has just been heavily restructured. The glass of whiskey slipped from Carter's hand, shattering on the marble floor. You're broke, Carter, Julian clarified, his eyes glinting with cold satisfaction. You will have to get a job. I suggest updating your resume. Though with your reputation, you might find it difficult. Carter looked like he couldn't breathe. He looked at me, a pathetic, pleading look in his eyes, the look of a boy expecting his mother to fix his mess. Aria, please. You can't let him do this. We loved each other. I'm sorry about the wedding. I'm sorry about everything. Security, Julian called out smoothly. 2 massive guards immediately stepped out of the shadows. This gentleman has had too much to drink and is harassing my wife, Julian said. Escort him and his +1 out. As they grabbed Carter's arms, he started shouting my name, begging, bargaining, crying. Chloe just turned and practically ran out of the room, leaving him behind in her desperation to escape the humiliation. I watched him being dragged out, kicking and screaming like a toddler. Once the doors closed, the string quartet resumed playing. The guests went back to their conversations, though they were now looking at Julian and me with a mix of awe and sheer terror. Julian turned to me, offering his arm. Dance with me, Mrs. Cross? I smiled, a genuine, radiant smile, and placed my hand in his. As he pulled me onto the dance floor, his hand firm and warm on my waist, he leaned down to whisper in my ear. Did I overstep? I know you wanted to handle him yourself. I rested my head against his shoulder, listening to the steady, strong beat of his heart. You gave me the power to handle him, I replied softly. You taking his company was just a very romantic bonus. Julian chuckled, a deep, rich sound that vibrated through my chest. I told you, Aria. I protect my investments. But more importantly, he pulled me slightly closer, his lips brushing my temple. I protect what I love. I looked up into his eyes, seeing the absolute sincerity shining there. There were no games, no petty jealousy, no measuring my worth by numbers or sizes. There was only respect, partnership, and a love that had been forged in fire and built on a foundation of unshakable trust. I love you too, Julian, I whispered. He smiled, kissing me softly under the glittering chandeliers. The girl who had stood shivering in a silk slip, humiliated and alone, was dead. She had burned to ashes on that hotel room floor. In her place stood a queen, and as I looked around the room, safe in the arms of the man who truly saw me, I knew one thing for certain. My happily ever after didn't start in a wedding dress. It started the moment I took it off.